what can leaders do? What can HR professionals do, DEI professionals do in the context of creating environments that are free from racialized trauma, but also we are where we are. Racism permeates every single workplace. So how can leaders work to create these environments where people can heal?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think first leaders have to be honest with themselves, right? Again, that intent versus impact. You might not have intended harm, but if harm is present, then it's impacted people. The one thing I want to tell leaders right now, there's a workplace study that was done last year, and they interviewed hundreds of thousands of people in the workplace. And one particular data point that stood out to me was that 50% of Black employees felt like they belonged for the first time at their companies while working from home. Over half of Black employees felt like they belonged at their companies during the pandemic because they got to work from home because they weren't experiencing those inequalities at all day long, right? So it's the pressure to actually not, because that's not on the job description, managing those things all day, but actually getting to do the real work and not being invaded every day with all of those microaggressions and macroaggressions. And so if I was a leader and I heard that stat, I would be thinking, why would I say everybody get back to work on May 15th or what, some ambiguous number, if there's a certain population that does not feel safe here, right? What are we going to do to make sure that we're removing barriers so that people come back and feel that? We're not returning back to normal. We need to return back to better. And that means what do our Black employees need? What do our women employees need? What do our LGBTQ those who are mothers, right, and returning back into the workforce, asking those questions. What do people need from us to do the best work of their careers? And I think if we ask ourselves those questions as leaders, even when we make a mistake, we're committed to equity. And so the other part of that, I think, is making sure that we have the right people in the right spaces, right? Sometimes we have people who are promoted into leadership who should not be managing teams, period, but definitely not diverse teams, because I often hear some managers say, well, I'm not comfortable talking about race, or I'm not comfortable calling someone by their preferred pronouns. And it's like, well, then you shouldn't be managing, because you don't get to opt in to equity here. Equity is mandatory. And so we need managers, 21st century and beyond managers who have those competencies. So leadership should be providing their managers and making sure you have the best people managing. Last thing I'll say is HR leaders, managers, aspiring managers, allies, again, thinking about how do we remove barriers instead of creating barriers, right? Yeah. What can we do to do that? And I have a manager's pledge in my book, and yes, it's about how each of us can commit to everyday acts of equity. And those aren't soft skills, these are leadership skills, right? And everyone needs them. And I think that the more we can rebuild that trust, because we can't heal the workplace if trust is not present. And if trust isn't present, then it's not a psychologically safe environment for anyone to work in.